Hello, everyone. So here's another clip from a day in the life of a small business employment attorney. It has to do with sex offenders in the workplace. So now that I've got your attention, what is it with sex offenders in the workplace? So this is, or has been, a rare issue to come up in my practice over the years, but it's come up twice in the last couple of months. So let me just take the first scenario where my client is a small, all my clients are small businesses. So the client runs multiple businesses. One is a consignment store, and then the other is like more of an office setup. I think he said it was a 5,000 square foot building with partitions in it, office environment, and it's a copier business. My client, well, actually, it's not even a client yet. I'm just providing a free consult, but this was a good topic, an interesting topic, I thought, that I could talk about. So he hired an individual on the consignment side of the business, who the very next day he found out was a sex offender, registered sex offender, and on the state of California's sex offender website. So what did he do? And of course, he's talking to me after the fact, after he's done everything, which is, when you learn to work with me, call me before you take adverse action, like fire the guy. But I didn't know him at that point. He fired the individual, said he was sorry, that, he was qualified, but, sorry, he couldn't, good conscience, in his mind anyway, retain a employee who was also a sex offender. So when he calls me, I told him, is this being the sunny state of California, you might think what you did is just absolutely fine, but not quite. I mean, there's a government code section that, basically tells employers that they cannot rely on criminal convictions of any kind, and rely on criminal convictions in hiring or firing decisions. Can't rely on those convictions without evaluating, they call it a particularized inquiry into the nature of the conviction and the functions of the job, right? The job duties. And California law requires that if you're going to deny employment to a convicted felon even, that you need to evaluate what is the felony conviction versus what do you do as a business? What is this person going to be doing in your business? And you have a high burden, really, of denying employment to this individual based on their prior convictions. Sex offender, sex crimes are a subset of convictions. And, of course, other California law requires that a convicted sex offender be registered and appear on a website that anybody could look up, on the one hand. And then on the other hand, they tell employers, now that you looked it up and you know this information, you cannot act on it unless you can show a close connection between the sex crime and your business and what this person is going to be doing in your business. So initially I told him, I asked him what he was going to be doing, basically just going to be doing consignment sales in kind of an open setting. This potential client was very concerned that this person would be working with women. So I asked them, and by the way, these sex crimes had to do with underage women. But anyway, I had to ask him, do you hire underage, are the women all over 18, basically? And he said, yes. And I said, well, they're adults, it's an open setting. Sure, they will have contact with each other, but I don't think you can really necessarily assume that, this person would engage in sex crimes with your adult female workplace. And he seemed to kind of consider that at the time. I told him, you may want to just if you still have a need, offer him the job back, and just tell the CRD that's what you want to do, try and negotiate a deal, and just put this to rest, is what I told him initially. As a lawyer, I need to be dispassionate about, my own views of whether the law is prudent or not prudent. It is what it is. I'm responsible for interpreting the law and advising my client. So that was my advice to this particular potential client. So just got a call. That was about 2 weeks ago. He called me back today and was very insistent that, no, this is just not right. I am not going to bring this person back. I feel very strongly that I have a duty, which he does, to his employees, to have it be a safe workplace. He also mentioned that he has an underage daughter and son that works in his business from time to time, and they're at the business location. And he, in good conscience as a father, couldn't allow this registered sex offender to be on his premises. Absolutely cannot blame him for his feelings. And I told him so. I said, look, I get it, and I explained to him how California, has conflicting laws and oftentimes puts the small business owner in a conflicted position between a rock and a hard place, if you will. But I told him, look, if you really feel that strongly about it, then go ahead and respond to the CRD, the Civil Rights Division, who is investigating him, with his strong feelings about why he felt he had not violated the law and why he terminated this employee's employment and was not going to bring this employee back. And I told him, he asked me for my help. I said, sure, absolutely. But I think it's better coming from you than from me. Go ahead and draft up your response to the CRD. Be concise. Don't be redundant. Should only be about a page and a half typewritten, single spaced, and tell them your side of the story and why you did what you did. So that's scenario number one. Actual, all of my, a day in a life clips are going to be based on real life examples. So I think that's, all of you viewers out there can relate to that, real life examples. And none of this is made up, even if you think it may sound like it is. Okay, the other scenario, actually, this is my biggest client, 700 employee client. Same situation. Interviewed an employee, and I can't say too much what this employer does because it could give them away, just based on geography of where my firm is located and where we practice, which is primarily out of California, but the firm primarily is based out of Northern California, even though we have Southern California lawyers down there who obviously handle Southern California work. But this individual passed all of the interviewing process, the initial process, and basically the client offered him a condition upon him passing a background screen. And then this client does background screens for all employees, all positions. Background screen came back with that he appeared on the National Sex Offender Registry, specifically the California Registry, and the registry listed out the various penal code sections, sex crimes that he had been convicted for. And admittedly, this is a long time ago. So probably his convictions were over 10 years ago, I think more like 15 or 20. He was much younger then, he's much older now. And basically what my client did, based on simply the background check results, rescinded the offer. So what happened? Client gets contacted by this applicant's attorney saying that we violated the California government code section on point. And me, admittedly, this doesn't happen every day in my practice. And this instance actually happened before the first instance that I talked to you all about. And so I have to go look up the law, and verify what I thought I knew, which was kind of vaguely that, hey, you can't just reject candidates because of criminal convictions in the sunny state of California. You have to look at the convictions and do an individualized assessment again, against the business operations and the specific duties that this individual would be doing. So, for example, if you've got a sex offender, that has sex crimes against minors, and you're the Girl Scouts of America, I think you'd have pretty good grounds, irrespective of how old the conviction was, to not hire a registered sex offender, for, I think, what should be obvious reasons, but given we're in California, maybe not so obvious to some, because believe it or not, Girl Scouts of California or even Boy Scouts of California might deny that person employment, and next thing you know, they're getting sued. I mean, because this is California after all, and this sort of crazy stuff happens. But anyway, so right now we're in the process of evaluating whether we potentially will reinstate the offer to this person on grounds that, pretty much they'll be dealing with the adults, and that the position involved doesn't involve minors of either sex. And, the client is evaluating whether it will reinstate the offer and actually offer this person the job. So I suppose that can conclude this video. And what are the lessons? I mean, I think the lessons are California is a crazy place. And what might seem obvious on the face of things, and, employers acting in good faith to not retain or reject a condition or rescind offers to registered sex offenders, it's not black and white. All right. So I think that's the lesson. I think that should be enough for today's day in the life. Aloha.